Sidechain compression has become an essential part of modern music production, but what exactly is sidechain compression and how do you use it? Hello, I'm Reagan Ram with Orpheus Audio Academy. Simply put, sidechaining is a production technique where one sound is affected or triggered by the output of a different sound. In other words, it's using one audio source, for example, a kick drum, to trigger a processor, for example, a compressor, on a different audio source, for example, a bass. This is most commonly used in electronic music production to create that pumping or ducking sound where all the instruments, or maybe at least the bass, is actually turning down in volume every time the kick comes in. Sidechaining gives you more freedom and flexibility over your arrangement, which leads for better sounding mixes and songs. This is because you can have two different instruments occupy the same frequency range in your song, and you can have them be there and not compete with each other when you use sidechain compression. That's enough talk. Let's actually look in our DAW and see how we do this. So the most common example of this you hear is with your kick in your bass. So we'll hear an example of that right now. So you can hear the bass is ducking in volume every time the kick comes in. And there's a couple different ways to do this. First, I'll share with you a shortcut and then kind of the traditional way. So a shortcut is just to use some kind of plugin. For example, I'm using the one knob pumper by Waves. And so as you can see, what it's doing with this glowing light here is it is ducking the volume, turning down the volume of the bass at every quarter note. And so you can determine how much it's turning it down with this knob here. So you can have it just duck slightly or a ton. And so we'll hear what this sounds like. Right about at 7 sounds pretty good. I think that's the default. And so you can use this on any instrument, and there's other ones out there too. This is just the one I have, and I like to use it a lot. But there's some drawbacks to that because it only can turn down the volume of whatever you have it on at a set rate. So you can see there's different rates in here. They're all set to the grid, and that's great. But what if you want to use sidechain compression just as a way to prevent your kick and bass from clashing rather than an effect, right? Because that's another way you can use sidechain compression is you can use it in a subtle way where you keep your bass and your kick from clashing, right? Because they occupy that same frequency range there, around 100 hertz and below. And so if you want to keep those from clashing, you want to turn down the bass just a little bit every time the kick comes in so that they aren't clashing. And so to do that, you'd want to actually sidechain the bass to the kick, or the compressor on the bass to the kick drum. So I'll show you how to do that now. So we have a compressor here. And so the way we set this up here in Logic is we just hit the little sidechain icon here, and then we choose what we want to connect it to. And so in this case, we're going to do kick 1, which is audio 1 here. And so now every time the kick comes in, it will activate the compressor and it will follow the parameters I have set up here. So we can hear what this sounds like. And watch. So if I had any bass here, it would be pretty much held down because there's a whole bunch of kick hits, kick drum samples there hitting. And so, but there's no bass in there, I have it cut out anyway. But you can kind of see how it's following what the kick is doing exactly. And you can see you can use this in any situation, right? You can sidechain any instrument to any other instrument and have it, if you're using a compressor, it would duck the volume according to the output of that. So the output of the kick is triggering this compressor to turn down the bass. So what settings do we want here? Well, we want our threshold and ratio to be pretty extreme because you really want to turn down that bass if you're wanting that pumping effect, right? If you're wanting it to be more subtle, then you would adjust these. So let's see. So you can see it's very subtle there, but if you're wanting that more extreme effect, then we would definitely pull these, the threshold and ratio down. And then since the kick drum has such a fast transient, right, it gets loud very fast and then it dies out. We want to have a very fast attack. So as soon as that kick boom hits, it is pulling down the volume of our bass. And then release, you just kind of set that to taste. How quickly do you want the volume of your bass to return to normal? So if we set it really slow, it'll be more of a longer ramp up. And then if we set it fast, it'll intensify that pumping sound because it's going down quickly and then going back up quickly. And so that is sidechain compression. This is how it's most commonly used, but there's a lot of different ways you can use it. So one thing you can do is you can also use sidechain compression to duck the volume of other channels or other instruments so that your vocal can cut through. So I've got a lead vocal here. And then this track doesn't really have a lot of clashing because something I've been just doing with my arrangement a lot lately is just making sure that everything has its own place and isn't clashing naturally just by nature of the frequency ranges that are contained in my sounds. But here I got a synth that's a little higher. And so if I thought that was clashing too much with my lead vocal, I got a compressor here, and this is set sidechain to the lead vocal. So when the lead vocal comes in, you'll see that it's going to turn down this synth. So we'll hear that now.
I have got to find another way to survive. I'm a ship without a rudder, no hyperdrive, I just can't say.
So you could do this with volume automation, right? You could just automate the volume down, or you can use a compressor like this so that it comes back up. You can also sidechain multiple instruments to allow this lead vocal to cut through. So I've got this bus here. It's kind of an instrument bus, which has basically all my instruments on it except for my drums and my bass, I believe. And so here I got a compressor on that bus, so I'm going to turn down all my instruments when the lead vocal comes in. But here in Logic with this default compressor they have, you can actually even have some extra options here if you click the sidechain button, so that we're only turning down a certain frequency range, right? Maybe we don't want to turn down the lower frequencies that aren't clashing. So you can see I've got kind of just the higher frequency range here where about the vocals are going to be mostly wanting to cut through. A fairly large cue point here to kind of scoop out that whole section. And then I have it set on high pass. And then we want this to be subtle, so we got the threshold and the ratio that are pretty subtle here because you don't want to notice it so much. We just want to hear that the lead vocal is cutting through and we can hear the lead vocal. So we'll hear what this sounds like now.
I have got to find another way to survive. I'm a ship without a rudder, no hyperdrive, I just can't say.
So you can hear without the compression, all the lead vocal kind of gets lost in the mix. So we could do other things. We could try EQing out different frequency ranges where the lead vocal is sitting. We could try just making the lead vocal louder, right? There's a lot of different things we can try. But another thing we can do is just use some subtle sidechain compression so that we are turning down those frequency ranges just when the lead vocals come in. And then when those are gone, it comes back up. And also just add some dynamics to your production, which is kind of nice. There's a lot of different ways you can use sidechaining, but one final technique I want to show you is actually with sidechaining delay to your lead vocal. Therefore, the delay only swells and comes in the gaps in your vocal. Now, this particular vocal doesn't really have a whole lot of gaps. It's pretty constant. But if I wanted to, I could have the delay come in any gaps that there are, and I'll show you a little bit later here. So one way, again, kind of a cheating way, but hey, there's not really any rules when it comes to music production, and it can save you a lot of time, is a Comeback Kid delay by Baby Audio. I did a full review on this plugin. You can check it out in the description below. But what this does is it has a ducker knob here, which basically is sidechain compression. And so that when the actual dry signal of the vocal is playing, no delay will come out. And you can dial this in as much as you want. So you could have it be completely out, or you can have some of it in. So this is kind of a good way of seeing what this effect can sound like.
I have got to find another way to survive. I'm a ship without a rudder, no hyperdrive, I just can't save.
So you can see only when the vocal drops out does the delay come in. And so again, if we wanted to set this up manually, we simply choose a send and we send our lead vocal to an aux track or a bus. In this case, I have bus 41 where I have some delay set up. So I have the delay how I want it, all the way wet. And then I have a compressor on it that I am sidechaining to the same lead vocal. Just like before, we set our threshold and ratio how we like. In this case, we really want to clamp down on that delay. We don't want to really hear it when the lead vocal is in. So I have our threshold pretty low, our ratio pretty darn low, and we'll hear what this sounds like.
I just can't save myself, so I'll go surfing on the sun.
And then here you can hear the delay come up again when the lead vocal is not in. Probably a lot more prevalent here on this little sound piece here.
I'll go surfing on the sun.
And there you go. If you want a proven step-by-step formula for mixing and mastering radio-ready tracks in record time, then just click in the description below to grab my rapid song finishing checklist. This checklist will ensure that you never have to wonder what to do next when you are mixing or mastering. The end result is you'll know exactly what to do and when, so you can consistently finish professional quality songs. If you found this video helpful, feel free to drop a like and let me know in the comments below what other questions you have about mixing or production. If you want to learn more about compression, then check out my video on the screen right now, which breaks down all the different types of compressors that there are, so you can know which type of compressor to use and when. All right, have a great day and keep creating.